For our lesson plan, we started with the KWL chart, and the three parts of the KWL chart are K, which is what you already know, W, which is what you want to know, and L, which is what you've learned so far, or what you learned through the lesson. So to start our lesson, we grouped the class into groups of about 4, and everybody got a chart, each individually, and they wrote down what they first started, and they wrote down what they already know about the different phases of the moon. So our whole lesson was about the different phases of the moon and what they were, and how to recognize one, and to be able to name it, and to be able to see a picture of it, and be able to tell which one is which. So for the K, they wrote down what they already know about the different phases of the moon in general, about space, just anything that they could come up with that they thought was related to the phases of the moon. So then after they wrote down theirs individually, they talked within their groups of 4 at their table, and they learned what other people already knew, and they had a chance to say what they already knew. So there was kind of a collaborative thing within the table. And then once they had a couple minutes to talk at the table, then we went around the whole classroom, and one person from each table said something that the table had already known. And then we did the exact same thing with the W. So they wrote down individually what they want to know about the moon. Then they worked in their groups around the table and each of them said what they want to know, and then we went around the class, and a different person from each table said what the table had wanted to know. And then the last part of the chart is the L, which I will actually go over at the end of this video. So then after we did the first 2 parts of the KWL chart, the what they know and what they want to know, we went into a brief PowerPoint of what the 4 main phases were, just to recap on what we had been learning for the past couple weeks, and to give them another chance to know what things looked like and be able to correspond the names of the phases with the pictures. So I'll show you the different slides that we had for the PowerPoint. So this is the first one, which just gave them the first quarter, the new moon, the third quarter, and the full moon with the earth in between, so they could kind of relate it to what they knew and saw the sunlight coming in. And then we talked about the new moon and what the main points were, is like when you can't see the moon and when it looks black. And then for the first quarter, we said that it occurs between new moon and full moon, and it was when the right half of the moon is illuminated. And then we went through the full moon, and it's when you can see the whole moon and it produces the most light. And then we went into the third quarter, and it says when you can see the left half of the moon and you start to see less of the moon every night as it goes on. So we went through this short little PowerPoint just to give them another overview. And then we started working on our activity, which was the Oreo activity. Okay, so this is a picture of the Oreo activity that we did with the kids. We actually just did the 4 main, so the new moon, the first quarter, the full moon, and then either the third or the last quarter, whichever one you want to call it. And then we had a blue cookie in the middle, which represented Earth, and then we had the sun coming in on either the right or left side, depending on which way you look at it. And so we gave every kid 3 Oreos, and they had to do it themselves. They had a poster that they could look at, and there was an example that we as teachers had made earlier that they could look at as a reference. And then they also had the PowerPoint, which we had just gone over. And then we went around and made sure that everybody's was correct, and made sure that they had everything in the right spot and labeled correctly. And then they were able to eat their Oreos and their cookie that was in the middle also, that would represent Earth. So after we did the activity, we had a fun game, like an interactive game planned that we were going to do on the smartboard. But actually, when we were doing our lesson plan, the smartboard was not working. So we ended up having we had the students get into pairs, and they went to the touchscreen computers that we have in our classroom, and they did them together in pairs instead of doing it one person coming up to the smartboard and showing it in front of the class. So instead of it being a whole class activity, it was more of just in pairs, which actually turned out better than we had expected. So this is the game. It actually doesn't pause, but it's more of an interactive game, and you go in and it tells you different phases, and you have to move the Earth. You have to take this and move the Earth and pick where it should go in relation to the moon and to the sun. So it was another way just to make sure they knew what the different phases looked like in relation to the moon and the sun. So after we did the interactive game in pairs, we brought everybody back together in the middle of the classroom and we went over our Schoology site, which is where we put the homework, where we have the calendar, which is right here. And that's where all their assignments will go, and just so parents can look, and it'll have all their assignments for every homework and all different things on it. So we showed them that, and then we gave them their homework that they had for the night, which was to look at the moon and either draw a picture of it, take a picture of it, take a video of it, or do whatever they wanted to, just to note, so that make sure that they looked at the moon that night after we had our activity. So that was our lesson plan activity that we did to our class. All in all, it went really well. It went really smoothly, except for when the smartboard didn't work, but luckily we had a backup plan. We knew the website, and you could just go on through our Google Docs that we had that had the website, so everybody could just log on to our Google Docs and find the website, and then they were all able to go and do the interactive game on their own computers in their pairs instead of doing it on the smartboard, which actually turned out to work out really well. So everything went really smoothly, and it turned out really great, and I think we all did a really good job.